Been there, done that, by Connor Grant. It's a cold, wintry day in Manhattan, possibly in November, the 29th. Police find the body of Michael Deckert, a life insurance salesman from Wisconsin, dead of a heart attack in a diner. He died on the can, his suit trousers halfway around his ankles, his mouth agape. Maybe the shock that he would die on the shitter in this place instead of every other and any other place he'd been to in his 42 years. And a briefcase of various contracts he had made open, the value of human life strewn all over the tiled floor under fluorescent lights. The last thing Michael remembered was straining, a pain in his chest beginning to swell that made him having to loosen his tie, and then blackness. That wasn't the last thing that Mikey saw or heard, though, and certainly wasn't the last thing he felt, as when he next opened his eyes, he immediately felt like he was hungover. He was bleary-eyed, and his tongue felt like flypaper. His throat had the texture of bark, and he felt, in part, like this may be a bad place to be. He knuckled his eyes, feeling the blurry, almost fish-eyed lens-type qualities leave them. He was also aware that he was in some kind of bar. There was a jukebox in the corner, something that looked like it had crawled from some scrap heap from the 50s, got hit by a car, and then continued to drag itself through the wooden door and across the sawdust-covered floor before expiring at its current location, hidden in a corner. The bar itself was being wiped down by a woman who, for some reason, Mikey could recognize, but not name. It reminded him of the feeling of déjà vu. You know you've been there, met these people, been in the exact situation, but for some reason you're sure you haven't actually done any of those things. A fleeting drop of memory in an ocean of abyssal qualities. The woman looked at him and nodded. "Hey, you're up," the woman said. "Got worried for a spell there." Mikey stood up from the booth he didn't even realise he was sat at, and then walked over to the counter. The woman smiled at him from over the bar, and Mikey realised he was stupendously warm, so he removed his jacket and placed it down on the ripped leather seating of the booth. He looked around the bar, more of a saloon than anything, and took a seat on the stool. He didn't notice, in the weird, sleepy, groggy mind frame he was in, that it was the only stool at the counter. "What'll you have?" she says. You can, do you have any bud?" "We do if you need us to," the woman said, brushing raven black hair behind her ear. She had a tattoo on her neck of something. It reminded Mikey of something he saw in a book once, something to do with constellations and alchemy, and people talking in hushed tones over books in the library about the moon and femininity. It made Mikey's head hurt to look at the tattoo for too long, as it seemed to move and breathe at a rhythm and tempo separate from the woman's own, and she spoiled his ruminations by placing the bud, loudly, in front of him on the counter. Mikey reached into his trouser pocket for cash, but the woman shook her head. "Don't pay anything till you leave." "Oh," Mikey said, raising the beers to his lips. "Oh, okay." "Okay." He looked around the bar as the haze began to filter from his mind. I was taking a shit," he said stupidly, almost mindlessly. "And then I was at the bar. I was here." The woman with her raven black hair smiled at him in a pleasant, friendly way. "Ah, friend," she said. "The sun got low a couple of hours ago. You ain't got long to wait before your accountant gets here." She smiled at him before looking up and down the bar as if it were other people there. Mikey couldn't see them. Ghosts, maybe. He only had time to take another swirl of the bud before the front door of the bar opened up, and a thin man with balding hair descended the slight wooden staircase from the front door and a raised area to the bar proper. It was that what reminded Mikey, in terms of architecture, of his favourite drinking hole, an Irish bar called O'Brien's, out on 46th Street. The man was surrealistically animated as he came down the stairs, and he had a briefcase held in his skeletal hands that had paper sheets stuck crudely from inside, poking out of the sides. Mikey looked at the man who took a place at the booth Mikey had been sat at. The woman with raven hair coughed, and the strange skinny man looked over at the bar nervously. He was sweating profusely, and his skin had the colour of cream. A small pencil moustache sat above a thin knife slash of a mouth, and the man looked over it with large, bug-like eyes at Mikey. "Ah, shit," said the man. "Shit, hang on." Mikey looked at the barmaid, who sighed, smiling. She had a glass in her hand that Mikey didn't remember her having a minute ago, and she was clearing it with a black hand towel. Red roses were embroidered into it, and there was an obvious amount of care put into the towel's construction. She looked at Mikey with smouldering, deep grey eyes. "You might want to go talk to him, hon," she said. "Just, don't freak out." Mikey sipped his beer, smiling. "I'll be okay. I have a funny feeling I'll be waking up soon. I probably just fell asleep on the can." The woman smiled, but almost as if she was in on a joke Mikey didn't get yet. "Sure, hun," she said. "Yeah." Mikey walked across to the booth where the man had opened the briefcase, a collection of papers and documents and sticky post-it notes strewn around it. He chewed his thumbnail as he studied a piece of paper, his brow furrowing almost with cartoonesque exaggeration. He looked up at Mikey as he took his seat, snapping back to reality with a startled yelp. "Fuck!" said the suited skinny man. You made me jump." Mikey nodded, scratching his cheek. His hand felt cold, something he attributed to the icy bud in his hand. "Sorry," Mikey said. I wasn't thinking." "No," said the man, looking back at the piece of paper. You weren't." The man enunciated the last part as if every word required great mental strength to produce. He eventually frowned before taking the piece of paper down in front of Mikey. "Deckert, M, 42 years old, cause of death, acute myocardial infarction." The skinny man pointed nervously to the paper, tapping a bony finger on the cause of death like a schoolteacher, pointing out an error on a page of homework. Fancy heart attack," he said. "Why can't they just, put fancy heart attack? I'll never know," he said with a nervous laugh. Mikey looked up at him, taking a sip from the bud. "Okay," Mikey said. I want to get up now." We all do," said the skinny man as he dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief, a similar black and red rose motif as the hand towel. "But, Mikey looked at the man, regarding him properly for the first time. "So, who are you?" My name is, Oscar Deloof. I was born in the, he said, furrowing his brow and then looking at Mikey with cold green eyes. "Well, I don't, I think the 30s. "Sure," Mikey said, now completely smug. He was right. This was a dream, and he'd wake up on the shitter, he hoped and prayed in his mind to whatever was in charge he hadn't fallen off the seat, and then go finish his steak and eggs. "So what, you're a Grim Reaper?" Mikey said, laughing. "You're supposed to have a cape and a lot less, skin?" Unions, yeah." "What the fuck are you even talking about?" Mikey said, his voice beginning to get high due to him laughing. "A union? What the fuck, why?" He laughed in the face of the skinny man, who smirked and laughed nervously back, looking downward. It reminded Mikey of kids back in high school who used to get bullied and kind of go along with it, on the off chance the bully gets bored. Mikey stopped laughing at that, as he thought about the time Jesse Dyer, from the year above, once taped Mikey to the inside of a garbage can and rolled him down onto a highway. "How you didn't kick the bucket then, I'll never know," said the skinny man. The raven-haired woman then appeared with a glass of water, placing it down in front of the skinny man with a smile. Mikey looked at her before realising what the skinny man had said. "Wait, I get it. You know everything, right?" I know a lot about, the skinny man said, sifting through some more sheets of paper from the case. 1888. Vicky Larson's Halloween party. She was the girl who went to town on two of your frat bros while she was too drunk. Basically passed out. "Now hang on," Mikey said. "Hang on. She, Skinny interrupted. She later went on to be a small-town mother in South Dakota. She only vaguely remembers your friends, whose names you don't remember, going to town on her." "Wait, no. You didn't do anything, I know, but it kept you up at night, didn't it? Because you should have helped. I know." "So, Skinny said, looking at the sheet. "How come you didn't?" "I wasn't ever popular," Mikey said, chugging the beer now. "And these guys were. I was scared as all, too. They were tougher than me. Skinny nodded, flicking a piece of paper over dramatically, before sipping his water thoughtfully, as though he was in an expensive restaurant he'd never been in before and was wondering what to get. Okay, Skinny said. Okay. Here's how it goes. Mikey nodded, placing the beer down on the stained wooden table of the booth. Okay. You know Deja Vu? Yeah? Well, this ain't the first time you've had a heart attack. In fact, you've gone through the loop a few times. Mikey sat back, opening his mouth before closing it again, tensing the muscles underneath his skin of his jaw. Now, the last time I explained what that meant, you got all weird and pleady and generally made things really, really uncomfortable for both of us. So, if you ask, you have to promise not to kind of, Mikey nodded, not really sure what to say. Basically, you're dead. Gone. Patrick Swayze in Ghost. Level's gone. Mikey didn't know what to say and simply took another gulp of the bud. But, okay, we can do a couple things, Mikey nodded. One is, you go to the other side and, you go wherever you're gonna go. Skinny paused, expecting a response, but Mikey merely looked at him confused. There was some kind of vulnerability behind Mikey's eyes there, and Skinny felt more than a little bad for the fella. The other is, we send you back. You remember a little bit of, the previous loop, but you don't get to choose what. Why? Mikey said. I guess because fuck you, right? I don't know, Mikey. I don't. Ah. But maybe, you stopped them two fellas from hurting that girl this time, if that's the thing you remember. You might remember the bartender now, too, huh? Mikey looked over at the raven-haired woman before turning back to Skinny. Is that her? Yeah, she's... that's not really her. That's your crazy brain imagining what she looks like now. Oh. You're taking this really well. I'm dead. I have a feeling a tantrum won't help. Nope, Skinny said, drinking more water and fetching out an official-looking document. As he did so, Mikey looked around the empty bar and noticed if he unfocused his eyes, he could see shapes moving at the periphery of his vision, a kind of shadowy afterimage of a silhouette, like how a shadow moves when there's a candle in a room, when it elongates and stretches. Malleable darkness, fluid like water. There's not just me here, is there? Skinny said, not moving his eyes from the paper. No. How come I can't see them? Would you want someone staring at you right now? We used to have it where that was a thing. Jeez. Bar fights would happen all the time, Skinny said. He clicked his fingers together, suddenly, and Mikey was startled back into looking at him. Skinny nodded as he passed a piece of paper, clear crystal white, bordered by thick heavy purple. It was blank save for a dotted line. No fine print, Mikey asked with a slight, somber smile. Even if this was a dream, he wanted it to be over now. Kinda no point, said Skinny. Kinda redundant at this point, Mikey nodded. It was true, or at least true enough, that there shouldn't be fine print at the very end. What would the fine print even be? So, Mikey said as he finished his bud, I sign this and you go back. Or you can go out those doors there and see what happens to you. Gotta warn you though, it's as permanent as it gets out there. I'm your accountant, not a miracle worker, Skinny said. When he caught what he said last, he laughed a little. I get no trust what I remember? Nope, you won't even remember this. What if I really try? You've said that before. Never works. Oh. Yeah, Skinny said, producing a pen from the briefcase, a simple black biro. Mikey took it in his hands, holding it up to the light which illuminated the booth. No quill. Right out. Said Mikey, who stared at the piece of paper. Mikey said, the thing with that girl, it stayed with me, It does. It bothers me that I couldn't help her, but how many times have I done this? I still don't remember it. You gotta decide if it's worth it. If you think you can, if not, you can just, see where you go. Mikey stared at the page for a good long while, and then he ordered another drink. In 1970, in a small Wisconsin hospital, Paul and Mary Deckert sat in the brightly lit hospital room, and Mary held in her hands a small bundle, wrapped gently in a soft towel. The nurse smiled as she told the new parents that their healthy baby boy was, physically, perfect. There was even talk about already naming the son, who had come clawing and fighting his way out of the womb like he had a mission. For the longest while they wanted to call their son Rupert, but there in the room, the little boy warm and asleep and cosy, they settled on Michael, although neither could remember why they had chosen that name. It had merely come to them like they'd done it before 1,000 times.